Alright boys, welcome back to another video. Thunder Alley here. Today we're going to be reacting to the Justin Herbert injury news, and we're going to be previewing the Pittsburgh Steelers Week 3 game. I have no life and no friends, so I've already watched both Steelers games to prepare this for you guys, and obviously I've watched the Chargers games because I cover them for you. So let's get into it. Let's start off with the good news. Very good news. The franchise of this team, Justin Herbert, his x-rays were negative. For those of you that did not see the play or did not see the game, in the third quarter, Herbert ended up sustaining a lower body injury in the third quarter of that win over the Panthers. Herbert took a big hit that caused a fumble. He was slow to get up and limped off the field. Trainers worked on his right foot and shin before he was taken into the medical tent. Herbert managed to finish the game. He said he got rolled up and went for x-rays after the game. He was limping and said he'll know more in the next couple of days. Well, a day later, we see that the x-rays were negative, and Harbaugh added, I'm sure there will be further evaluations as the week goes on, but it's looking like Herbert is going to be perfectly fine. I don't think anyone's concerned about him. Yeah, 130 yards is the lowest total in any game of his career. He lost a fumble. He threw an uncharacteristic interception to JC Horn. But Herbert hasn't had to throw the ball because the run game has been so electric. The Chargers have been the best running team in football through the first 2 weeks. They have the lowest amount of points given up on defense. No Chargers fan is complaining about Herbert right now. They understand that absolutely the passing game is going to have to be there in week 3 against the Steelers, against the Chiefs. It's certainly going to have to be there. But 2-0, best defense, best run game, best offensive line. The least of anyone's concerns right now is Justin Herbert. He attempted only 20 passes because of how effective the run game was. And we also saw, of course, Quentin Johnston catch 2 touchdowns. He had nearly 40% of Herbert's yards through the air. I mean, I'm feeling great as a Chargers fan covering the team for you guys, so there's no concern there. Not to mention, Herbert looked plenty mobile in this game. He tallied 6 carries for 18 yards. He had a 13-yard run on a keeper. It was a read option play. I mean, Herbert, I had legitimate concerns about his mobility early on in the season after that training camp injury, but that has just clearly gone out the window. So that's the overall news for Justin Herbert. Now let's get into the Pittsburgh Steelers week. This is going to be a crazy difficult game. I've been seeing a lot of Chargers fans say that they've got this easy, saying that the Raiders are a more difficult team. Guys, I'll be the first to tell you, from somebody who I've seen both Raiders games and I've seen both Steelers games, they are 2 completely different teams. I understand that the Steelers offense just hasn't been very good. They can't throw the ball. They can run it, sure, their defense is great. We have to realize that this is the Steelers' home opener. The Steelers are only the 10th team since 2014 to start the season with a 2-0 record with both wins on the road. Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of this football team for Los Angeles, of course, said, quote, "This week, really going to Pittsburgh, the challenge that's going to be this opener against the playoff team, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's an aura there," end quote. Harbaugh understands that the Steelers are one of the most difficult teams to beat because of their defense, their run game, their culture, their identity. This is going to be a very tough game for the Chargers to pull off, to walk out of Pittsburgh with a win. With that being said, though, I do think the Chargers will win this because, well, Justin Herbert and Justin Fields are just not the same player. The Steelers' run game, it hasn't been as good as the Chargers. It's been good, but the Chargers have been great. It's number 1. Defensively, you've got Pittsburgh with TJ Watt. You've got Alex Highsmith. But the Chargers have Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. Nobody has a better 1-2 tackle punch in football right now than those 2 guys. Not to mention the guards were outstanding with Pipkins and with Johnson in that game against the Panthers. And then Bradley Bozeman, as center, had a very good game as well. He was the, I believe, at the top of my head, 9th highest graded player on offense in week 2, and not just for the Chargers, but for anyone. So it was a very good game, guys. Like, the Chargers collectively were great offensively on their own line, which is why they've been able to run the ball and they haven't been forced to throw it a ton. But I just think the biggest thing between the Chargers and the Steelers is that the Chargers, they have a quarterback who can make any throw in the field, and he's basically a generational talent. Now, Justin Herbert has done things that nobody else in the game of football has with his arm, his accuracy. Herbert makes some throws that just have me absolutely dumbfounded. Keenan Allen specifically was no longer here, but Quentin Johnson, breakout game. Lad McConkey, I have a lot of faith in. Casuals who I've talked to within the past couple of days say that the Chargers don't have a go-to receiver. I beg to differ. I think Lad McConkey is good enough to be a #1 right now. He's extremely talented. And then, of course, Josh Palmer. But the Chargers, they're going to play through their defense. They're going to play through their run game, play action. They're not going to try to put the ball into Herbert's hands too much. I don't think the Steelers are going to have any success on the Chargers' defense because they've struggled now against the Atlanta Falcons and the Denver Broncos. The Chargers' defense is certainly better than both of those teams. The Falcons do have a good defense, don't get me wrong, but the Chargers have a great defense, which just sounds funny to say aloud, but they've got Khalil Mack. Joey Bosa only played in 13 snaps in week 2 because he was dealing with an injury, and it was the Panthers, so there was no need to get him out there much. I mean, you play 13 snaps and you get a sack. Normally, I mean, you're playing 32 at minimum, 32 maybe to 40 snaps. And Bosa plays in 13 and already gets a sack and has a couple of nice plays. So I do think the Chargers win this game. I'm expecting them to win this game. I do think it will be close. I think it will probably be 24-17. I think 24-17 is a very realistic score here. I feel like that's going to be a popular pick. I just don't know if the Steelers have enough offensively right now to be able to move the ball consistently on the Chargers because the Steelers offense, it's dealt with penalties. They've had some big plays, but they've been called back. And I think the offensive line for Pittsburgh is going to have trouble against this Chargers front because it's not just the edges, it's the interior. The guy like Apuna Ford, for example, Tuli Tuipulotu. You also got a free agent pickup, of course, for the Chargers that came over, and Bud Dupree. I mean, this is going to be a very, very fun game. This, to me, is the game of the week. I don't know if we'll get a better game than the Chargers-Steelers in week 3. I know Ravens-Cowboys is going to get some picks. You got Chiefs and Falcons. But to me, the game that I'm primarily focused on is the Chargers and the Steelers. They're both 2-0. They're both run-heavy teams with elite defenses. Justin Fields and Justin Herbert. I mean, you talk about talent at the quarterback position. These guys have done things that nobody else has. Herbert with his arm, Fields with his legs. One thing that I will add is the Steelers secondary definitely should be tested in this one. Minkah Fitzpatrick's as good as it gets. He did have a huge mistake in that Broncos game that cost his team a big-time play for 40-plus yards. Deshaun Elliott, Damontae Kazee, that's a question mark for sure. Kazee ended up losing the starting safety spot to Elliott, but he did get a pick in that game off of Bo Nix in the last play. Joey Porter Jr. is very, very good. Corey Trice Jr. had a pick in the red zone. Darius Rush, see how much run he gets. I do think the Chargers should be able to exploit the secondary. I don't think that's the greatest strength for the Steelers. Yeah, their front, their linebackers, that's very good. But Herbert should have a lot of success throwing on the Steelers in this game, especially with McConkey, Palmer, and Johnson. Guys, that's going to do it for the video. I'm out. Thunder Alley.